Hello everyone, Jeff Howell here. Talked to you a while back about my Telecaster bass and my involvement with the Outlaws and the CDs I did with them. And I am Jeff Howell, bass guitarist. I live in the Finger Lakes of New York. And along with being in the Outlaws, I was with Foghat, Savoy Brown, and an awful lot of other bands along the way. Before and after. Currently, I have my own band called Jeff Howell's Boogie Du Jour, and I have a CD available called Bon Appetit, and a lot of killer songs on it. And I have to say that. And I have a CD I did earlier called First Time. I did that about 10 years or better ago. And once again, killer songs are both available for anyone that would like to just put on a CD. Okay? Way cool. I just want to get that out of the way. And my band will be playing. Like a lot of bands, they're not playing. So we're finding ways to get by with our lives and our enjoyment and our need. And we need to play. That's what we need to do. Or we just go boop into a lot of globules, like they said in Spinal Tap. Anyhow, today I wanted to chat a bit about my John Entwistle story. So in the bass world and in rock and roll, unless you were dead, John Entwistle was the bassist for The Who and one of the premier bass players of getting the kind of sound. I was a big fan of his, and I got a chance to meet him. I was out in California in my time with Foghat. This is going back quite a ways. And one of my times in Foghat, I've been in and out of that band a bit. They're not very good at cards, and so I'm actually better then. And but we had a few days off, and one of my dear friends, who's no longer with us, Billy Davis, was living out there at the time with a family member, his brother, I believe, and Billy was with myself and a very good band out of the Binghamton, New York area. It was actually his band, and I joined in the early 80s, and our friendship carried on long after I left the band. And prior to myself getting Billy in Foghat, and then he went on to be with Badfinger. He's actually in the Outlaws for just a split second, whole different story. So rather than get all over the map, we'll go back to the Entwistle part of this. And Billy was out there, so we hooked up on my days off, and we went and we saw like the Spruce Goose and the Queen Mary, and we did that stuff. We went out to dinner, and then Meatloaf was playing at the Roxy, and Pat Thrall, the great guitar player, was playing with him at the time. So we dug on that, and then right next door, pretty much to the Roxy on Sunset Strip in Hollywood, is what's called the Rainbow Room, which is just an all-night eatery bar slash everybody in the world goes there or had been there. And this was my first time there, and it was mobbed, and I couldn't help but notice a bunch of limos out front, and it was the first time I ever seen a stretch Hummer, right? You know, limo. I go, oh, wow, what are they gonna think of next? And then so we go in, and you know, people start like, the word gets around quick, so and so from such and such a band's here and that, and wow, you get spinning. And I saw a table of a lot of British accents together in conglomerate, poof, all pushed together, about 30 people, and they were carrying on quite loudly, being merry, if you will. And it was John Entwistle holding court. And of course, I'm like, oh, wow, you know, this is way cool, Entwistle. And so Bill and I, we just kind of hanging out. We were at the bar, and some local dudes come over and they started chatting. It was all way cool. And Entwistle got up and left, and he went to look like a VIP bathroom, a private, you know, a bathroom for maybe the guy that owns the place. And when he came out, that's when I said, "Hey, man, John," and introduced myself. And we had a great conversation. He's really cool. He wasn't as big as I would have thought because they call him the Ox, which led me to believe the other guys must have been not very big. Either way, we talked about bass strings. The first thing he asked me is, "Oh, what kind of bass strings you use, Jeff?" And that was fantastic. He had just switched from being Mr. Roto Sound, as most musicians would know, certainly bass players, to these gold Maxims. That's what he had at the time. So that was interesting. We chatted about that until a girl came up and whispered in his ear, and he excused himself and off he went. And I walked over to my friend Bill and I says, I just chatted with John Entwistle. And my friend Bill goes, yes you did. And that's my Entwistle story. So it's really cool, along with being in these bands, the craziness that can happen and the cool things that can happen too. And it doesn't have to be self-induced. You're like, I won't do that again, you know. It's the lifestyle. Nothing exceeds like excess, right? But let me show you something here. Check this out. Long after the Outlaws, or long after my Foghat time, I was in the Outlaws. And whilst on a tour, this guy right here, see him with the whiskers next to young Jeff? Yeah, Leland Sklar, bass guru. Just wow. Where do you go from there? Everything you hear from James Taylor, all that legendary stuff, Phil Collins, Sue Studio, all the Warrens, Yvonne, early Linda Ronstadt, Jackson Browne. I could just go down the list. You could Google him and you can find out a lot more than what I can babble about. But I got to hang with him for like 3 months on the Southern Spirit Tour in 1994 when I was in the Outlaws. And he was playing in this outfit called the Barefoot Servants. It wasn't really a band, but it kind of was, I guess. A guy had written a song and got a little play on it. And he had the guitarist Jon Butcher, who I crossed paths with recently and frequently over the last couple of years at things I do up in the New England area. He's a killer guitar player. And at the time, John was playing in this situation, and called the Barefoot Servants, and Leland Sklar was the bass player. And so he was on the tour, the Southern Spirit Tour in '94. It was 38 Special, the Marshall Tucker Band, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, where I got to be chummy with Kim Wilson, the lead singer, because I did a good favor for him. That's a different story. And Outlaws, who I was in. It was a 4-piece at the time, but as Huey said, it put out the sound of 10. And that was his own words. So the particular lineup of the Outlaws I was in, with Barry Borden, B.B. Queen as they called him, when he played with Mother's Finest, Chris Hicks, and they're both with Marshall Tucker as I speak, and Huey and I. And it was a ferocious foursome, there's no doubt. And it was a pleasure to play in that lineup. It goes by in the blink of an eye. But I got Leland for all that time. I just pick his brain and he'd tell me things, and that was fantastic. He introduced me to Tim Bogart at Universal Amphitheaters, Universal Studios, when we played a concert there. The Nelson twins were there. I mean, it was just this who's who of who's who. And I remember kind of hanging in the sides, and I feel this nudge on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Jeff Carlisi from 38 Special, their guitar player. And he goes, I hate these things. And I was kind of like, well, you know, you got to put the right face on for the meet and greets, if you will, the handshaking and stuff. And he was great. And right out he went, just turned right into it, boom, shaking hands and stuff. It's funny how I remember these little things. It's fantastic. I play G&L basses these days. They made this one for me. It's a beautiful L2000. And I'm fortunate enough to have wonderful people at Hip Shot that manufacture toolings and all kinds of hardware globally to not be too far from where I live. And they have been incredible to me over the years. And so I put the drop extender on the E string because I'm comfortable with 4 on the floor, as I heard it said before. Get it? And it's a beautiful bass. G&L is like a Fender on steroids, you know. So it gives you a lot of wallop with your onboard circuitry. And it's just the one I like to play. I'm giving lessons as things go through this time where we're all isolated. It's what I kind of do anyhow. when I'm not playing, traveling, or recording. And I'm learning all the time too. And I'm learning this crap out there is serious. And everyone be safe, okay? And I'll talk to you down the road. Peace out.